Every culture has a version of the same instruction. Teach your children to respect you. And almost every version of the advice assumes the same mechanism. That respect is installed by requiring it. You set the rule, you enforce the rule, the child learns. There is a body of research that has actually watched this happen, not asked parents about it afterwards, watched it in the same children over years. It says the mechanism is close to the opposite of that. And then there is one finding inside it that complicates the tidy version, which most people who quote this research leave out. I am not going to leave it out. The researcher is Kochanska at the University of Iowa. Her work runs across decades and multiple groups of families. And the reason it is worth your time is one methodological decision. When most studies measure whether a child obeys, they measure it with the parent in the room, which tells you about the parent's presence, not the child's values. Kochanska separated two things. Situational compliance. The child does what you said because you are there monitoring. And committed compliance. The child takes on the rule as their own. They cooperate willingly without being steered through it. Then, and this is the part that makes it work, internalization was measured with the child alone. The experimenter leaves. There is an attractive object the child was told not to touch. Nobody is watching. So the outcome is literally, what does the child do when there is no one there to be obeyed? Here is the result. Only committed compliance was associated with internalization. Situational compliance was not. Read that carefully, because it is more specific than the slogan people make of it. It is not that obedience is bad. It is that the obedience you produce by standing there does not appear to convert into anything the child carries with them. The child who does it because you are watching, and the child who does it because they have taken it on, look identical in the moment. They are not the same child 10 minutes later when you leave the room. And this construct is not just her own. Another group at Arizona State, with a larger sample, found the same distinction holding up outside her lab. So what predicts a child taking the rule on? Kochanska's answer is a relationship quality she calls mutually responsive orientation. A pattern where the parent and child are genuinely responsive to each other, cooperative, mutually attentive, in a shared rhythm rather than a chain of command. In her longitudinal work, early dyadic cooperation predicted later conscience. And the earliest measurement wave contributed independently. It was not just that cooperative toddlers became cooperative preschoolers who became moral children. I want to be precise about the ages, because I have seen this claim circulate with numbers attached that I could not verify. The early wave was measured in toddlerhood, between roughly 26 and 41 months. I could not get access to the full text to check the exact outcome age or the coefficients. So I will tell you the shape of the finding, and I am not going to invent a number to make it sound tighter than what I actually read. Now the finding that complicates all of this, which I nearly left out and then decided I could not. In 2003, Kochanska and colleagues looked at maternal power assertion, the degree of controlling, forceful influence a mother used in two different situations. 1. Actual discipline, the moment the child is doing something they should not, and the mother intervenes. 2. Moral discourse, sitting down afterwards and talking about a past misbehavior. Same behavior from the mother, two different contexts. And the results went in opposite directions. In the discipline moments, more power assertion predicted more moral conduct later, and less antisocial conduct. In the conversations about past misbehavior, more power assertion predicted less mature moral reasoning. Same mother, same forcefulness, opposite outcomes depending on when she deployed it. Now I have to put a fence around that, because it is the most misusable finding I have covered on this channel. Power assertion, in this research, is a coded measure of how much controlling influence a parent uses during a standardized task in a lab. It is a dial of firmness, observed by researchers. It is not spanking. It is not harshness. If you hear that finding and translate it into being tougher works, you have swapped the noun, which is exactly the error this channel keeps finding in other people's work, and I am not going to commit it live. And there is a specific reason to be careful here. There is a figure circulating about physical punishment producing immediate compliance, attached to a 2016 paper. That figure is from a different, much older paper. The 2016 one reports immediate defiance at an effect size of 0.14, not statistically significant, and the authors flag it as unexpected. So, the honest reading of the 2003 finding is about timing, not intensity. Firmness in the moment of an actual transgression tracked differently than the same firmness in a debrief afterwards. That is a claim about when. It is not a license about how hard. And here is the limit that applies to the entire episode. All of this is correlational, every bit of it. There is no experiment where researchers randomly assign some parents to be warm and mutually responsive and others not, and then measured the children's conscience. There is no twin study of this, no children of twins design. And the confound is not exotic. It is sitting right there. Easy children make warmth easy. A child who is temperamentally cooperative pulls a warmer, more mutually responsive style out of a parent. Then that same child develops a strong conscience. The parenting and the outcome would correlate beautifully, and the arrow could be running the other way the whole time. The closest anyone has come is an adoption study, which removes the shared genes explanation, but it measured a different outcome, not conscience. And there are randomized trials that successfully changed parenting behavior. They never scored internalization, so they cannot close this either. So the mechanism is plausible, well observed, replicated as a construct, and causally unproven. All four of those at once. One more, because it is often sold as the sophisticated version of this research. There is an appealing idea that fearful children need gentle discipline, while fearless children need the relationship route. Different children, different levers. It is a lovely theory. Both of its supporting replications came from the same researchers' own cohorts. And a 2025 study across 4 separate cohorts, with over 30,000 children, looked for this kind of differential susceptibility in 16 different analyses. It found it in 0 of them. That does not demolish the idea. The measures were different, and parenting was assessed by questionnaire rather than observation, which is weaker. But it does mean that when someone tells you confidently which discipline style your particular child's temperament requires, they are ahead of the evidence. So, what survives? The distinction between compliance while watched and compliance taken on is real, measured properly, and holds up outside the lab that invented it. Only the second one tracked internalization. A mutually responsive relationship in the early years predicts later conscience, in longitudinal data, with the earliest wave carrying its own weight. Firmness looks different depending on whether you are in the moment or in the debrief afterwards. And none of it is causally established, because the study that would establish it has not been run. If you want the practical version, the thing you can observe at home is not whether they obey. It is what they do when you are not in the room. That is the variable this research says matters, and it is the one that nobody's advice measures, because measuring it requires you to leave. That is what this channel is for. One claim, traced to where it actually came from, including the parts that weaken it, and including the finding that made the story less tidy. If we get one wrong, tell us. We will fix it in public with our name on the correction. Every study named here is in the description.